Flow News Week.
Welcome back to the Foreign Report. I'm Sina Gazanevi. This is your weekly foreign policy show that gives you the gory details of geopolitics. Hopefully some laughs along the way.
Ooh, we'll try.
Yeah, we're going to do it. I'm Sina Gazanevi. Travis Irvine, our guest host, is with us again today. Comedian, director, Columbia Journalism School grad. Look out.
I got the hat. This is my most expensive hat. Fun fact.
That is an expensive hat. I won't even wear my law school hat. I don't even think I ever got one. I had a hoodie, but that's an expensive hoodie.
Right. Yeah, you keep that at home.
Yeah. But I am your foreign policy curious host. I'm not an expert, guys.
No.
Travis isn't an expert.
No.
We're just guys.
We're just people.
We're just the #1 geopolitical show of the manosphere.
Yes, we got that on lockdown because we said so.
That's us. Look at these guns. These guns.
And I brought out the Bernie shirt.
And the Bernie shirt. Bernie means guns.
That's what, you'd be surprised. Vermont, not exactly gun territory, but no.
Probably
it's more fish territory. And I mean the band, not the food or animal.
Send us a question or your comment to theforeignreportlpn@gmail.com. Follow us on all the socials. We are on YouTube, of course. We're also anywhere you get your podcasts. We would love it, love it, love it if you could rate us and subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to the pod. Send us nice notes. Apple Podcasts are really great things. Spotify, I love the comments on Spotify. They're all very fun, a lot of engaging conversation. And YouTube, of course. Really love our YouTube community that's growing there as well.
They think we're hot.
Yeah, they think you're hot.
I'll start commenting that you're hot.
Okay, thanks.
And that'll be the conversation there.
Wait a minute. Are you the one commenting that you are hot?
I'll never tell.
Oh, God.
I could do that myself at home.
Well, we've got a lot to cover on the show today. Obviously, there's crazy stuff happening in L.A. That's didn't need to happen, frankly. And then we're also going to cover, there's a little bit on the Qatari jet that was supposed to be a gift, but is not a gift, but is a gift if you ask it to be a gift.
Is it a gift or a grift? We'll find out.
Probably the latter, right? Greta Thunberg, we're going to have a quick update on her. You probably saw video clips around that. Trump's travel ban.
Bonkers.
Pressure on NATO countries to increase military spending. U.S.-China trade talks are on again. We've got a little bit on J.D. Vance in the
tiny bit. Last week was a meaty J.D. Vance week, so we'll give him a little bit of a break, but he never ceases to do something stupid.
And the TSA is working on some virtual reality stuff that I think is insane, so I wanted to bring that up on the show today. So to get to what's happening in our city here.
Yes. Los Angeles.
By the way, there was a fire in Burbank that didn't make the news. This is a 10-acre fire.
There's no other news that can make the news right now.
Yeah.
It's like all the news is fit to print. It's like eventually you do run out of space.
But I think what is happening in L.A. right now should, one, not surprise anybody, and two, remind you that the United States as an empire is actually in decline. And we're going to update you on what's been happening with the protests that have happened in Los Angeles since last Friday and how all of this is one ingredient of the decline soup that America is going through as an empire right now.
See, now you're making it sound delicious. But all right, let's go.
Hungry?
I would love some decline soup right now.
Hey, decline that soup.
Oh, it's just so nice.
It's the soup du jour. I think this flavor of authoritarianism that we're experiencing is showing itself again. We talked about competitive authoritarianism, which is like the flavor of American authoritarianism.
Again, you're making me hungry with all these references.
We're going to Flavor Town, baby!
I wish Guy Fieri was president, but I digress.
Things would be so much more delicious.
Oh, my God.
Can you
From coast to coast, baby. Don't get me started.
So, right now, we've talked about in earlier episodes competitive authoritarianism. For those of you who don't remember, it's when you actually use the levers of power in a democracy to have an authoritarian streak. Right. So you're winning an election, but then you are also using the administrative state to go after your enemies.
Yes, and then questioning results of future elections.
And then you are also leveraging how the courts use their process of going through a proceeding by renditioning people that were going through the immigration process to El Salvador before a court order can come down, because those things take time. Due process is a process, and it needs due time.
Right, exactly.
So, right now, as we sit here today on, what is it, Wednesday, June 11th.
We record on Wednesdays, and the news usually changes by the time the episode drops on Fridays.
Yeah.
But we're doing our best.
Should we just do these live? Should we just do these live on Friday now?
Let us know if you tune in live on a Friday.
On a Friday, we're just going to do it live.
We're doing it live, Bill O'Reilly style.
The California National Guard is here. There's over 4,000 of them. There are over 700 Marines. Trump has nationalized the California National Guard.
Right.
And so, how did we get here?
Yes. Specifically, as many people have pointed out on the internet, Trump did not mobilize the National Guard on January 6th.
Yes.
So there are lots of parallels to where we were then when he was president to where we are now when he's, again, president.
And the fact that they're using words like insurrection is, I mean, if...
We're being attacked by our own people. Outside of Home Depot?
Oh, man, forget about it. MS-13, that is HQ for MS-13. If you're an MS-13, we see you at Home Depot.
Yeah.
You're not safe there.
And also, I need some landscaping done. Come on over.
Come on over. What do you guys, can you imagine MS-13 guy just chock full of tattoos and like dueling golden guns on his hips? Like, oh yeah, I'll lay some mulch for you.
Yeah.
No problem.
I don't care if he's illegal. He does great work.
He does good work. Great with his hands. So last Friday on June 6th, ICE was in Southern California doing sweeps, as they've been doing across the country.
Right.
And as we were just joking, one of the sweeps they were doing was at a Home Depot.
Right. And we've talked about this on the show before.
Abrego Garcia also got picked up at a Home Depot.
In Chicago, right.
Which is like, are these guys not at Lowe's? I don't...
They're not Lowe's guys.
It's like Lowe's gets nothing. And so later that day... They were also in downtown in the fashion district of Los Angeles at another MS-13 honeypot, an apparel manufacturing business.
All right.
So,
wow, threw me a curveball on that one.
Bunch of seamstresses. It's just so bad. That's when protesters started really gathering around these two federal buildings downtown and started protesting like, hey, I can't get into the Home Depot. Or,
right.
What are you guys doing?
Right. And good on them for doing that. That's
and
their
so
right.
That was great. But then the LAPD at night said, I think it was around 10 p.m., they said this is an unlawful assembly. Okay, great. That's all fine, well and good.
LAPD's never been wrong about anything.
Never been wrong. Always on the cutting edge of fairness.
Right.
So next day, the 7th, all right? And this is all important to really think about
the
where America is in not just this moment, but also in its lifespan as an empire. And they're in a town south of LA. You might have seen these videos where ICE was not actually doing a raid. They were just staging. They were like meeting and staging resources. But here's the thing. There was a Home Depot right next to where they were staging.
A lot of Home Depots.
So all these protesters were like, oh, we see what's going to happen. They're going to raid another Home Depot.
Right.
And, you know, one way to look at this is that people just want to go to Home Depot without, immigration being there.
Sure. Right. The federal authorities.
But how it's like kind of predictable. We see you. We see you. You couldn't pick any other place to stage anything, or was it just a coincidence?
Right.
We'll never know.
Right.
But that night, and there was some wild stuff happening where ICE is like flying their cars through crowds, and the crowds of protesters are throwing rocks and fireworks and stuff like that.
We've seen the videos.
And LAPD is out there quelling the protesters, keeping them at bay. And mind you, Los Angeles is gigantic.
Huge.
And this is all happening in very small pockets.
Right.
Okay? But that night, I guess, I don't know, Trump's on the internet. He's always online.
Right. Or he's watching Fox News and seeing this.
Fox News. And he skips over to the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, and nationalizes 2,000 National Guardsmen to Los Angeles. And that's when you start to see an escalation, because at 4 a.m. they show up.
Oh, boy.
And by the way, they don't have any food or water. They're just there. They just...
Right.
It's like
it's not one of those humanitarian National Guard missions.
Exactly.
Oh, there's flooding. We should go help.
They're all sharing 1 Celsius. They're all trying to get checked up.
All right. I mean, I get messed up on one. I couldn't imagine.
But listen, the last time a president nationalized the National Guard.
Uh-oh, I'm going to know this.
What, you are?
Well, tell me, and then I'll tell you if I knew it.
LBJ in 65 to protect civil rights protests in Selma. And I'll tell you what.
Wow.
This is the exact same thing. A president
sure, yes.
protecting the civil rights of
Somebody?
somebody.
Right.
Somebody.
Wow, LBJ in a positive light. No, I was thinking Kent State, but that was actually the Ohio governor in 1970. But I have seen articles, especially because I'm from Ohio, people who were at Kent State in 1970 during that crisis and seeing parallels between that and now.
Yes, exactly. So let's look at this. So this is Sunday now, the 8th. And the National Guard is there.
So it's building throughout the weekend.
Building throughout the weekend. This is when you start seeing the rubber bullets start to come out.
Right. Which
And
at least they're doing that as opposed to what they did in Kent State, which were real bullets.
Just real bullets. Yeah, I think they learned a couple things at least. But let me share this video. This is when, I don't know if some people saw this or not.
I've seen this all over the internet.
But this Australian journalist was shot by a rubber bullet during the LA protests.
And point blank, too, almost, where the police
you
officer sees her reporting, aims, fires. It's pretty
And I tell you what, this woman, this you can view for the YouTube people. This is a blonde-haired white woman from Australia. For me, I tell you what, she looks like she's a Hamas fighter.
Oh, sure.
This is definitely a Hamas fighter.
I mean, honestly, cut out for Fox News journalists, usually. That's
Either
usually the requirements.
A Fox News anchor or Hamas fighter. So
right.
Let's play the clip. It's going to start with her talking a little bit, and then you'll hear some noises, which is her getting shot with a rubber bullet. I'll try to do my best to describe it for the audio listeners at home.
I think that it's so important that, journalists are out there doing our job. On horseback, firing rubber bullets at protesters, moving them on through the heart of LA.
Okay, firework.
Now,
And then this guy, he just shot her, and the video shows...
We were reporting on the Today Show all morning the situation on the ground in downtown when there were suddenly just thousands of protesters on the streets of downtown LA, and we felt that presence of the LAPD and law enforcement really ramp up. I have a bit of a bloody big old bruise and it's a little bit sore, but I am all okay. I just want to move on and I will get back out there and keep on reporting it.
wow. And again, this is a foreign policy show. This is now domestic news that has become foreign news.
A bloody big old bruise.
She was, by bloody, she actually meant bloody. She didn't mean like the colloquial British term, like bloody hell.
I think maybe.
It's bloody.
It's
no, I've seen
bloody.
My friend, I have a friend who's been down there and he also got shot with a rubber bullet and it is a nasty looking thing on his leg. So
I saw one where they were like, this person got hit in the head with a rubber bullet and they were like bleeding profusely.
That stuff, depending
people,
on where they hit you, it could actually kill you.
Yeah, and the people that were like yelling at the cops, they're like, you shot this person in the head. And they were like, it's not a real bullet. And I'm like, wait, they're still bleeding from the head.
Still hurts a lot, dude.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
Now there's 700. So Monday happens.
Oh,
There's
Monday.
700.
I like this.
June 9th.
A 3-day build, 4-day build.
The 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines out of 29 Palms, California are deployed to Los Angeles. That brings...
So the Marines are here now.
The 4,000 National Guardsmen, 700 troops. By the way, do you know how many troops we have in Syria right now?
I'm going to pretend like I know, but then you tell me and I'll tell you if I knew.
We have 1,500 troops in Syria.
Jeez.
There are more.
Isn't it like, hold on. We've covered Syria on this show. It's like not good right now. 1,500. All right. That's fine.
1,500 troops in Syria.
Sure.
The country. And we have 4,700 troops basically in downtown Los Angeles.
700 Marines, 4,000 National Guard.
But don't worry, our government is doing this super efficiently, and that's what I wanted to get to. We're
that's
efficient.
right. Of course, Doge is still in the news, and we all know we want to control unnecessary spending, fraud, waste, and abuse.
Exactly. And how and they're not spending frivolously. This is critical stuff that they're doing that needs to be spent, and they're not going to waste American tax dollars on something that, by the way, the LAPD more than capable of handling.
Right.
Do we not think, what do we think? Has anyone ever called the LAPD a bunch of wimps?
No.
Has anyone ever been so bold?
There's a lot of good rap songs from my youth about how they particularly use a lot of force.
Oh, no, they're very nonviolent. They use a lot of talking.
Really leading the way on community relations.
Yeah, they really de-escalate at the LAPD. The LAPD is fine. They can beat people up just as well as the National Guardsmen or the Marines for that. Which, by the way, the Marines, you send them to Afghanistan.
Yeah.
You're sending them to the fashion district?
Oh, man. Woo! Have fun out there, boys.
Here's Pete Hegseth talking to Congressman Pete Aguilar about
a lot of Pete's.
The amount of money, and then Pete Hegseth kicks it to his assistant or deputy to talk about the costs associated with this operation.
The estimated cost of the deployment for the Guard and the Marines to LA, and where's this funding coming from? Will it be coming from quality of life programs that affect our service members or our families? If you want to wait till I finish.
Before I hand it to Brian,
such as updates, housing and barracks.
Before I hand it to Bryn, the insinuation that we're pulling money from housing and barracks in order to fund this is disingenuous and incorrect.
I'm just asking.
Bryn can give you the numbers. Absolutely.
So the current estimated cost is $134 million, which is largely just TDY costs, travel, housing, food, etc.
$134 million?
$134 million.
Didn't they just cut, around that amount from a lot of, critical social safety net programs?
Travis,
food for kids?
Don't be crazy, Travis.
All right, I'm
crazy.
You know what? I'm the crazy guy here. That's nuts, dude. For 700 Marines and 4,000 National Guardsmen.
That are also not getting, each of them, it does not have a Celsius. Each of them does not have even like a sandwich.
What's the Celsius budget on this, Secretary Hegseth?
We got $12. That's it.
Right. No expense spared.
Oh, my God. And obviously, California is not taking this lying down. They are also doing the classic Democratic response of sending letters and filing lawsuits, which this administration does not care about.
Right.
California Attorney General Rob Bonta said he and Newsom are suing the Trump administration, alleging the president and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth have, quote, trampled over California's sovereignty by unlawfully invoking a, quote, law that's intended to prevent an invasion by a foreign nation or prevent a rebellion or in response to local and state law enforcement, making it so that the law of the United States cannot be executed. Those are the three elements of how the president should or is allowed to nationalize the National Guard for a state. And so, again, they are saying that because you have protesters waving a Mexican flag, that means Mexico is literally invading us.
Oh, boy.
Or Venezuela, or pick your flavor of brown country that they are going to put this on. There is an outright rebellion, which I don't know if anyone, maybe folks at home haven't been to downtown Los Angeles or the Fashion District. It is very small.
Yeah.
And that's not where the rebellion's going to be. And and if they even took over the federal buildings down there, nothing would happen. There's no one's working. They fired everybody. This looks like, what are we doing here? And again, the last part is, can a local or state law enforcement handle this? Clearly they can. It's the LAPD. This isn't their first rodeo.
Right.
Here I am advocating for the strength of the LAPD. Which is, how did I get here?
Times have changed. It's not the early 90s anymore.
It really isn't. And so that was all on Monday.
Right. So we're looking at a 4 or 5 day span tops.
And so now Tuesday happens, and a reporter asked Trump if he would use the Insurrection Act as a response to the protests, and the president responded, quote, "If there's an insurrection, I would certainly invoke it. We will see." I don't think he knows what an insurrection.
If past is precedent, I don't think he does.
I don't think that word means what you think it means.
Right, exactly. And then in terms of what we opened with, in terms of authoritarianism and just how does this all tie in, right? Like we just covered a lot of stuff happening just over a span of days. How does this
Well, here's the button, right?
Right, yeah.
Is that his other quote was, "These are paid insurrectionists. These are paid troublemakers."
Oh, the George Soros thing again?
Exactly. This is classic authoritarianism. When you see people using their democratic right to protest, and you're saying that there is a foreign actor involved, which allows you to then use emergency powers to then go after them. And then you're able to say that these are not people just standing up for moms and dads and brothers and sisters being kidnapped off the street, but that they're being paid for by some sort of just George Soros fund of some kind.
Right. And then I think there's also the element of using those emergency powers against certain people and groups you don't like protesting, and then not using them against your groups. In fact, giving your quote-unquote protesters and the people from January 6th full-on pardons.
Exactly. And when we come back, I want to take a break now, and then I want to come back and I want to talk about how this all deals with America's decline as an empire, because this should put this in context. We are in this moment, but all these little things are happening, and they mean something, and they are part of a trend that's been happening in this country that predates Trump.
Right.
Trump is a catalyst for the decline, but we're here for a lot of reasons, and I'll go into them when we come back. I'm Sina Gaznavy for Travis Irvine. This is the Foreign Report. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Foreign Report. I'm Sina Gaznavy. Travis Irvine is here as our guest host today. We've been covering what's been happening in Los Angeles and what it means for America's overall state as an empire. And we know, Travis, that empires rise and fall.
They sure do.
And
just look at Empire Records.
You know, before Trump got into office, I think it was 2016?
Yes.
Something like no, it was maybe later. I don't know. There was a time I remember I was just at a nice dinner party with my wife's friends who were all in social impact work and really very positive work. And I was feeling real brooding. And I was like, America's in a 100-year decline. And they were like, come on, Sina.
Come on, Sina. Have more ravioli.
Yeah.
We're trying to have a good time here.
And you know what? I can't help but see time and time again I'm being proved right. And I want to go through some elements that can show us. And don't worry, this will relate back to these LA protests because it's very indicative.
Oh, sure.
I don't know if you know who Ray Dalio is?
Do enlighten me. I'll pretend like I know, and then you tell me if I know.
I'll tell it,
yeah.
and you tell me,
like, yeah,
I know him.
Yeah, Ray. Good guy. Famous Ray's Pizza.
He's a big, successful investor. He's one of these guys that made so much money that basically he switched his life to just trying to educate people on how the world works because he made money on how the world works.
So he's like a nice rich guy.
He's like a nice rich guy, if whatever nice you want to define as.
It's a low bar.
Yeah, he's not a Nazi.
Okay. Oh, cool.
So it's like, the bar is low. He's not using like methane gas to power his like AI servers.
He's not on ketamine 24 hours.
Yeah, he's not like transfusing the blood of young people into his body. He's like he's like a Warren Buffett type guy.
Okay.
Okay.
Good. That's I like that one.
He's got these books, but they're pretty dense, but very informative. And one of them that I like is called The Dealing with the Changing World Order. And what he did is he got all these historians together and he pulled together these books that tracked how all the major empires in world history rose and fell. And there are characteristics that are similar in all of them, right? And there's an archetypal cycle that happens. And for the audio listeners, I'll go through this chart that I'm showing, but it's a bell curve that shows the arc. Think of like a story arc. You know, you got your initial kind of thing,
We're
rising.
movie guys. We
Yeah.
like story arcs.
You've got your climax, and then you've got your resolution. But it's very sad when it happens to an empire, because that means the empire goes away.
So this is more like the plot of The Empire Strikes Back.
Yes.
And there will be a trilogy, but this movie ends badly.
Very badly. So you start, and if you think about where America starts, there's 17 points on this chart here. And where America starts is, 1776, right? It's like this is when America's beginnings are. And the elements of the new order are, 1, strong leadership, inventiveness, education, strong culture, good resource allocation, good competitiveness, strong income growth, strong markets and financial centers. So those are those first 8 things that really define the rise of an empire. And you could really point to the fact that, okay, we were very competitive in the global market because we had
resources.
We had resources and free labor.
Yeah,
we
right.
enslaved a bunch of
Yes,
people,
that's right.
and we got a big head start.
And then we were stealing all the land.
Stole the land. All of these things, whether that's morally good or bad, obviously we know the answer to that.
Right.
But albeit, what it creates is you having a strong empire. It creates you to have dominance in the world. And then from that, the Constitution gave us these ideals and this culture.
And that is kind of how the Roman Empire also, right? They'd take over a territory, then be like, join us, be part of the empire, and then they'd implement a pseudo-representative system through the early version of the Senate.
And you could look at this rise in America all the way until just after World War II. And if we're tracking this chart, America is right at the top just after World War II, because the manufacturing boom that helped fund the war and everything like that, everyone's all on board. It's a unipolar moment for America. We are the number one people in the world. We had to drop some bombs to do that, but we are the number one power in the world.
That's right. And it was kind of reluctant leading up to that point, too. We obviously had a blip, a little internal conflict called the Civil War.
Yeah.
But that eradicated the issue of slavery. And then, for the most part, not fully, obviously, in terms of Reconstruction, Jim Crow laws and everything. But then, yeah, I remember from my history books, World War I, we went in and helped, but after that, there was like an isolationist period in America until it was like, we have to step up or no one else will.
Exactly.
And that led us to World War II.
And that's the thing to think about when it comes to these empires rising and falling. It's not so linear, to your point. We've had a civil war. We had isolationist periods. It goes like this. It's a bit of a zigzag, but these are the general trends. These are the archetypes.
The growth of the overall.
And so how we define the top is your empire generally becomes less productive, so you're a little bit lazier, right?
Life is good.
But that's not necessarily happening in America. We're a very productive country still, mainly because of the technological innovation that's happened. But at the top, there's another element, overextended. I think you could clearly say America overextended around the world.
Military bases all over the place.
How did that 20-year war go in Afghanistan?
Yeesh.
Yikes.
Did we start any more after that?
Oh, gosh.
Ugh. I mean, we didn't start them, but we've,
And we're definitely not finishing them either.
No. Oh, baby.
So we lose competitiveness is the next one. That's like another element of being at the top. We're still pretty competitive, but if you look at what happened this week with the China talks, just in the last week, China's been shifting a lot of their trade to other countries.
Of course.
So other players, we're not necessarily losing competitiveness, but as much as China and other countries are becoming more competitive. So here's the other element of the top, wealth gaps.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Better show off my Bernie shirt real
get
quick
that.
again.
When
When 1% of the 1% of the 1%, that is not enough percent, in my opinion. Thank you very much.
So speaking of which, the 1% of Americans hold nearly 31% of the U.S. net worth in 2024.
Yikes.
That ends up being around $50 trillion of wealth. And so if you look at how that progresses, like, okay, great, the richest 1%, that's great. Shouldn't that all mean that the rest of the country prospers as well, Travis?
Oh, man, I hope so.
Ronald Reagan said that would happen.
Yeah, it all trickled down like pee.
Since 1971, the number of households that were in the middle class went from 61% to 51% in 2023.
Yikes.
So we went through the biggest economic expansion in human history during that time, but yet the middle class shrunk. And by middle class, by the way, we mean anywhere, depending on your family size and the state you're in, are you making like 50, 60,000 to like 170,000 for your family? Again, varies by state. The share of aggregate income. Okay, here's another one. 62% in 1970. So how much income did the middle class own? In 1970 was 62%. In 2021, it's 42%.
Uh-oh.
High earners, their share increased from 29% to 50%. So you can see how that happens. Again, you have a lot of this like laptop class of people that then are becoming high earners with all these technological advancements. But at the same time, if you expand the base of high earners, the tax system is supposed to help people.
Right, unless.
Do tell, Travis.
You're telling me that the richer people get, with the exception of Mr. Ray here.
Yeah.
The rich people can start buying off politicians, changing the tax laws, getting the loopholes, moving their money around to where they need to keep more and more of it, and then hoard it, and then buy things like rocket ships and yachts.
The irony here is that all of these conservatives will talk about a tax system that's too complicated, that's all over the place, but they are fundamentally, the wealthy are the ones that benefit from that complex tax system. They're the ones that benefit from a complex administrative state because they have the money to pay to have regulatory capture, to actually take advantage of all of those things. You and me, we're going to either directly to TurboTax or to our one-person operation CPA and saying, hey, please make sure I don't.
I have to pay too much,
When I first started freelancing, I made a couple extra bucks one year.
Yeah.
And the tax bill was insane.
Yep, happened to me too.
And that same year, the Panama Papers came out. And I remember going to my accountant and being like, how do we get into this?
Move everything to Panama.
Where do I get a Panama? Where do I get a paper? Where do I get a Panama paper? How do I get my money into these places? I cannot possibly be paying like 700% more in taxes than these absolute uber wealthy people. So that's a huge indicator of, okay, we're at the top and now we're declining. Because if your empire isn't protecting the people most vulnerable and the middle class, that means you don't have upward mobility. That means you don't have prosperity, and that's going to breed resentment.
Yes, and of course, I'm sure everyone's seen this meme going around the internets. It certainly popped up in my feeds and algorithms, but it's not just the middle class. These illegal immigrants, quote unquote, or even just immigrants in general who are working lawfully in this country, actually contribute over $100 million to the tax base of the federal government. And guess what group of people gets $100 million or more in tax breaks, tax loopholes, or they evade taxes entirely? The 1%, everybody. That's right. When they pay their fair share, that is when maybe I will be president. We will see.
Here's the other thing. Speaking of money that goes to tax breaks for the 1%, the national debt right now, I looked it up last night. Can you guess? Do you know what it is?
I just especially because of the big, beautiful bill, quote unquote, it's going to increase it even further in the next 10 years. But I have heard my most recent $36 trillion.
Wow, right on the money. $36.2 trillion. And so
I don't even know what that looks like.
What is
I have $1 in my pocket right now. I'm saving it in case I need it for bus money.
That equates to, okay, so then we have this GDP thing, right? Gross domestic product. What is all the stuff worth that we make as a country? What's our output as a country?
Because we are the richest country in the history of the earth.
Our national debt, our debt to GDP ratio is 123%. So 100% so we have like basically a little over a $20 trillion economy in the GDP. We borrow on top of that. We borrow more than $20 trillion that we make because we print money, we do all these things, we fight in wars for 20 years.
Right.
Saudi Arabia, by the way, their debt to GDP ratio is 29.2. China, 25.6. You can't really trust that number necessarily, but even if it's 2 or 3 times more, imagine if you're leveraged, Travis.
Right.
If you're in credit card debt 123% more than what you're making, I'm never going to lend you money.
Right, yeah.
But somehow America's the reserve currency in the world, so everyone will let America borrow money constantly.
Right, but they did downgrade our rating, right?
And this is what starts to happen. You start seeing these rating downgrades. We've been printing money all the time. Are we the reserve currency? And this is when the change happens, is right after World War II, or right around World War II, we had the Bretton Woods Conference. I'm sorry if I'm getting a little too deep into history stuff here. But
deep into the woods?
But I think it's really important. It established the post-World War II global economic order. It created institutions like the IMF, International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank.
Yes.
And it anchored the world economy to the U.S. dollar.
Right.
Which went away from being pegged to gold. So then everyone then is just looking at the dollar as value because we trust in America's system. If that trust goes away, which we're seeing with these various downgrades that are happening and people owning bonds, that foreign countries owning bonds that they could just get rid of and stuff, this is what changes the trajectory of our country when we allowed technocrats and capitalists to run our democracy instead of those people working for our democracy. And I cannot stress that point enough.
Right. It increases the wealth gap, creates these situations that we are now currently seeing with the currency, and then boom, back to the arc. We're on the decline.
And part of that decline is people not wanting to use America as the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency. And now here we go to today, the Los Angeles protests. Weak leadership is another element of the decline.
Right.
And nothing screams weak leadership as a president
who screams,
that is so insecure that everything that comes out of his mouth, it feels like he's defending against some sort of slight. And there's nothing that's more weak than sending your own military, who are trained to be deployed into war zones, to the fashion district of Los Angeles.
Wow.
That is crazy. The final element after weak leadership is, of course, civil war and revolution. We're not there yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. But this decline could take a long time.
Right.
And what I'm seeing from these protests is like, wow, this is the epitome of weak leadership. You could have talked to Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom's not some sort of socialist. Right. He's not some sort of left-winger.
No, not by any means.
He's a corporate Dem.
Yeah, he's interviewing Steve Bannon on his show.
He's the guy that cleared out all these homeless encampments and stuff like that and kicked all these unhoused people out of the only little square of land of like little sidewalk that they were living on.
Right.
Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
This is absolute. Pete Hegseth, same thing. Absolute weakness. And this is why he's got Pete Hegseth in there, because Mark Esper, his former Secretary of Defense, would not use the military against their own people. He wouldn't order them. He wouldn't do that order. And he knew Pete Hegseth is so loyal because he's very weak. He has no backbone because his mother hates him.
Right. And his experience is literally being on Fox News on the weekends.
And we got here, Travis, I think, because we're like obsessed with GDP growth in this country since like Bretton Woods. We're obsessed with growth, but at what cost?
Right, right.
You know, it's like all this expansion. You got people that can't, they're going to go bankrupt from a healthcare bill.
Right.
You got food that's dirty. The bread, you can't eat bread in this country.
Right.
I love watching videos of people going to like France and Italy and just eating bread, and they're like, I can't eat a single piece of bread. I'm gluten intolerant in America, but why am I able to eat bread here?
It's fresher bread.
Here's another thing. Wait, let me get this. I was on page 7, and lovable Jackie Zabrowski wants to be a snack-fluencer.
Right.
And she left me with this gift.
I also did page 7, and they gave me snacks.
They gave me snacks, right? Yeah. This is, and this speaking about our food in this country, this is Sour Patch Kids, okay? But they're called glow-ups. And you know why?
No, I don't know why.
Because they glow under a black light. And we're supposed to eat this.
Wait a minute. Somebody call RFK Jr. This sounds like the thing about Sour Patch
Oh,
candies
my
is that
God.
these things will make you radioactive in your kids.
The ingredients on this it's all science. You need multiple degrees to be able to read the ingredient list on this thing. 21% of American adults are functionally illiterate.
Right, okay.
Like, all of these things combined, the wealth gap, all of these things.
Right, and even this new big, beautiful bill continues to move more wealth to that wealthy 1%. It cuts education funding. It cuts things like the SNAP programs, a.k.a. food stamps that feed the poorest of our citizens. So, if anything, to your point here, the authoritarianism is being almost accelerated. Like they're going into fifth gear on the entire thing as opposed to the last few decades. Obviously, we've kind of been leading to this point, but instead of doing anything about it effectively to help the middle class who overwhelmingly supported Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah.
Because they didn't like the economy under Joe Biden. Instead, he's cranking on the gas.
Because you feel inflation every single day, right? But the problem with a lot of these things that are happening, like even in Los Angeles, like if I'm somebody that's in Chicago or in another city around the country or something like that, the distance that you have from something that's happening in LA, you can kind of disassociate from that. Maybe you don't see it as much as in your social media.
Right.
But if your groceries go up, you're going to feel that. Right now, I think over the next few months, people are going to start feeling the effects of all these terrible economic policies.
I mean, the big, beautiful bill takes place over a decade, so it cuts the amount of funding, from these social safety net programs every year. A little bit more gets cut. So these are problems that are going to be felt for 10 years, a.k.a. under whatever the next administration is.
Yeah.
Right? So despite the fact that Trump administration did it, the repercussions are going to be felt. Let's say the Democrats somehow win in 2028. Well, now they've got to deal with the repercussions of this quote unquote big, beautiful bill.
And the Latin men that voted for Trump, that are all like, I want the criminals. I waited my turn. I want the criminals out. It's not fair. I did it the right way. They all live in multi-generational households and in communities that are very close together. They're all going to start seeing their relatives, their friends, their coworkers, their neighbors being snatched up from the street. And that is going to be a wake-up call to a lot of people that thought Donald Trump was going to do what he said he was going to do and not deport regular people, but just deport the criminals. The problem is, he always was going to deport everybody.
Right. They literally had signs that said mass deportations now at the convention.
And so arguably Donald Trump told you what he was going to do.
They had signs, thousands of signs at the convention that said that they were going to do that. I've seen those news reports too. It's like, I didn't expect them to take this guy.
Yeah.
You look at just, again, rural towns in Missouri. It's like, oh, they took Clara, who made all the good food for the workers at this one restaurant. And it's like, now she's gone. It's just, it's one of those things where it's like, it can't happen here.
Yeah.
And then you vote for it to happen here.
Yeah. And how does this relate to the foreign republics, how does this relate to geopolitics as America declines?
Or even the Roman Empire, right?
Yeah.
They had a similar decline. The rich took over, the working people got less, and slowly, of course, it was a long time ago, but the fringes, the far parts of your empire start to crumble and rebel and so on.
Exactly. And so who knows what's going to happen? We'll be back after this, but we're going to talk about some of these China trade talks, what's happening around the world, a little bit more specifically. But remember, what happens here sends ripples around the world, which is why we're covering it here. So,
domestic policy is foreign policy.
I'm Sina Gazami, Travis Irvine. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to the Foreign Report. I'm Sina Gazami. This is your weekly geopolitics show. Travis Irvine is our guest host. He's back with us. We talked about America's decline. We talked about the LA protests that are happening. We talked about how Trump is wasted $134 million, and not a single one of these guys has a Celsius to drink. So, God, what are we going to do? I wanted to talk about a few stories that also came up. This one just happened, the Qatari jet that we covered in depth.
We've been talking about this. It's a Palace in the Sky.
Palace in the Sky, Boeing 747A aircraft.
Sounds like a nice, cheap piece of hardware.
You know, that deal isn't fun. That big, beautiful deal is not finalized.
Okay, go on.
Do you know why?
I'm going to pretend like I know once you told me, baby. Probably because it's a big, expensive plane. It's hard to fix.
So it is in America, but they're waiting to start work on it because they have to finalize it. But here's the thing, the Qataris...
Oh, boy.
The Qataris are trying to get Trump to admit that he's the one who actually asked for it. Hold on, let me show you.
Oh, hold on.
I got to show
It's
you.
like the kid at Christmas who says, I really want this. And then the parents get him that. And then he's like, well, I didn't want this. And you didn't want, and then it's just a family fight at Christmas.
Yeah, so this is from the Washington Post. Trump initially said it was Qatar that reached out and offered him the luxury jet free of charge.
Right.
In fact, it was the Trump administration that first approached Qatar this winter about acquiring the plane through a sale after the president made clear to aides that he was upset about delays of 2 Boeing jets purchased during his first term for $3.9 billion, officials said. Discussion about the sale later evolved into Qatar agreeing to provide the plane as a gift. Development, because he was making a deal. They was like, we'll give you a gift and you do this and you do that. Like,
what is happening?
He came asking for it.
But he can't. Okay, all right. Weak. Remember you said the thing about weak leadership?
Yes.
He doesn't want to say that he asked for it because then he'll look like weak leadership.
And
also, I think the whole idea, like, it's a gift, doesn't make him, culpable for any type of corruption or nefarious purposes.
Yes, and we all know that this is going to be wildly expensive to do.
To
convert
to
it into Air Force One.
Right.
They actually asked Pete Hegseth how much it's going to cost. He didn't know. Of course he doesn't know. Of course. There was also great, when he was on the Hill in that same congressional hearing, I think it was the House Appropriations, there were some other great moments where he got yelled at that were chef's kiss.
Right. And he's just like, it's disingenuous.
Yeah.
I'm going to have her answer the question.
Oh, God. That deputy next to him, she hates her job.
Oh, God. Why pass the buck when you can pass $134 million bucks?
I'm sure you saw this over the weekend. Greta Thunberg deported from Israel after an attempt to deliver aid to Gazans.
Now, this is an interesting thing. How can we recap this in a nutshell?
Well,
it's like activists basically saying, we're going into Gaza to bring food and help. And
there's been multiple tries to get a ship with aid into Gaza because the Israeli government keeps saying that Hamas keeps taking all the aid. Cindy McCain at the World Food Program, she's even saying it's not Hamas, it's Israel. I mean, there's
lots of reports coming out.
The socialist Cindy McCain.
Yes, we all uber liberal, uber progressive.
Yeah,
Cindy
she's
McCain.
like, I want to get the food in there.
Yeah,
they're not letting me get the food in there.
Get it in
there.
there.
And the food they are letting is like 6 bags of flour. So people are trying to get food in there, and it's being blocked. And this is not elaborate conjecture or anything. This is like people that would normally be very pro-Israel are saying that the food is not getting it, that Israel is not allowing it in there, right? And so Thunberg, using her platform, brought a lot of attention to the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, and they went and tried to break the embargo, basically. And they got captured.
Oh, okay.
Israeli troops boarded the plane. She even had like if you see this video, I have been kidnapped and captured by the Israeli Defense Force.
Whoa.
So they got captured and then they deported them. I mean, I think we all knew that was probably going to happen.
Right.
I guess the question for you is that, was it worth it? Do you think that's a good thing that they did that? They never really got the food in there in the first place. Presumably, they didn't think they were actually ever going to get through.
Right. I would answer it with a very broad answer, which is that because of my algorithm, everything that's happening, whether it's the protests in LA or the issues in the Middle East, it's important to do something.
Yes.
It's important to do anything. You cannot do everything, but you can do something. So I think, yes, whatever you can do to call attention to what's happening, because you're absolutely right. Israel has been saying for a while that the food's not getting in there because Hamas is sabotaging it. And now because of all the reporting and everything that's being done now, we know that, well, that's not true.
Yeah.
So whatever you can do, if it's floating the boat, take it to the moat.
Yep.
Get in that castle.
Trump's travel ban went into effect this week as well. Trump's new iteration of his first term's attempt at a travel ban went into effect on Monday. In a video message, Trump said, quote, "The recent terror attack in Boulder, Colorado has underscored the extreme dangers posed to our country by the entry of foreign nationals who are not properly vetted, as well as those who come here as temporary visitors and overstay their visas. We don't want them."
Oh.
Well, no surprise there. So here's what's being affected. All travelers are banned from Afghanistan, Chad, Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Islamic Republic of Iran, Libya, Myanmar, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen.
Wow.
Jesus. And certain types of visas will be suspended for people from Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela. What happened to Turkmenistan? Why did they get involved in this?
Right, that's one of the obscure ones. I can't believe he banned Chad. That's just a couple of party bros in a fraternity. Why is he...
He banned Sigma Chi? That's weird.
Come on, man.
God, that's not fair.
That's terrible. That's, again, like you're saying, weak leadership and this is like isolating us even more.
Exactly. And so what happens when there's another country that people just want to do business with more? Like I was listening recently about how people view China, and a lot of these other countries, like especially in East Asia, they don't want to have China be their primary partner.
Right. The soft power.
Yeah.
Anytime you're closing a door, the person's just going to go next door.
And they really, really, really don't want to have to resort to China being their zaddy.
You're right.
It's
Father's Day is right around the corner.
So. What are you getting me, audience, for Father's Day? That's the real question.
Right. And what are we all getting China? Apparently everything. We're giving it to him on a golden platter.
On a golden platter. Well, I don't know what's going to happen with this, but this is probably going to get challenged again. I've read some other reports that it's probably going to hold up in court because I don't know if you probably remember, but the first one that Steve Miller wrote was just like, the Muslims from everywhere, they're banned. And then it's just like, I'm sure like there was a draft.
Pretty good Steve Miller impression.
I'm sure there was like a draft that he made before that was like, the blacks, the browns, the yellows, Alva, banned. And they were like, we should just make it the Muslims. Like, okay. And then that got thrown out.
Right.
But now they're using, again, authoritarian streak, right? Using what's happening.
Blaming the others.
Blaming the other. And then using the levers of power that you have to ostracize and impact the most vulnerable people.
Right. So
there we go. Couple more stories. Oh, let's just, U.S. and China trade negotiations have happened. That's a big thing that we will keep tracking. There's some talks there, but more to come on
Feels
that.
like those are always changing.
Last two stories. The TSA. What's more foreign than the TSA?
You got to go through the TSA to get anywhere.
That's right. Our friends at 404 Media are reporting that the TSA has submitted patent applications on haptic technology that would enable a TSA employee to virtually, quote, feel airline passengers when they go through security. So they just do this. They got these gloves.
That's creepier than when they actually touch my shoulders.
I know. I don't wear underwear when I go through TSA, just so they can feel a little jiggle.
The biggest pat down I ever got, I was flying on Valentine's Day, and it really was just nice to have someone give me a free massage. It was like, that's what I said after he wrapped up. I was like, Happy Valentine's Day. Thank you for your service.
Here's $5. There you go.
Right. I'll tip you at the door.
A DHS report claims, quote, the proposed device is a wearable accessory that features touchless sensors, cameras, and a haptic feedback pad. The touchless sensors system could be enabled through millimeter wave scanning, light detection, and ranging. Light detection and ranging. So it's a LiDAR sensor. Kind of like those things that are the thing that does your Face ID on your phone is a LiDAR sensor. Or backscatter X-ray technology. That's just someone peeing on your back, I think. A user fits the device over their hand. When the touchless sensors in the device are within range of the targeted object, the sensors in the pad detect the target object's contours to produce sensorial data.
What is happening? So they can feel me with their minds?
Yeah, they're going to wear VR goggles and special gloves
I guess that
and
is
they're
better
gonna
than them
inspect-
actually touching me.
I don't know. It's gonna be insane.
Aren't these the same people got in trouble for when they were getting the pictures of people, doing the poses inside the giant machines? They were like swapping pictures of like hot people.
That was some guy did that. He was like really all over the place. And then Travis, give us our JD Vance story before we leave.
Yeah, well, speaking of weak leadership and kicking people out to other countries because you can't take a freaking joke, JD Vance, everyone, America's least liked vice president in history since they started keeping track. He appeared to suggest that he would deport a man who runs a popular X account, which is focused on menswear. This is so.
I love that guy.
This is so trivial. After the user shared his experience living as an undocumented immigrant in the United States. Yeah, so on the social media platform now known as X, the user known as Derek Guy posted a long message encouraging people, of course, with the current times, not to view undocumented immigrants as straight up MS-13 members or anything else like that, and suggested that they are just neighbors like all of us. As a result, people on X immediately tagged Vance, telling the vice president he has the opportunity to do, quote, the funniest thing ever. I actually don't think that's true.
I don't think it is true either.
I've seen many funny movies that are funnier than this. And in an indirect way, suggesting that he deport Derek Guy. Oh, man. So Vance, because he is, and again, this speaks to why everyone on the internet hates Vance. He uses the internet in the way everyone else uses the internet, but he does it for shitty purposes.
Yeah.
And he posts the very popular meme of Jack Nicholson, the actor, from a certain movie that I don't even know what it's from, where he's shaking his head like, You've seen the meme.
Is it The Departed? I think
it's not The Departed. I honestly think it's the Adam Sandler movie where they shout at each other. Anger Management is what it was.
Oh, right.
So Derek Guy, also known as a menswear guy, he uses mostly his account to just comment on men's clothing trends.
If you don't follow this guy,
right,
I highly recommend it.
People's clothing.
I have he is incredible.
And this is the real motivation. It's just so stupid.
So stupid.
But so symbolic of our current times and predicaments that the whole reason Vance doesn't like Derek Guy is because he previously critiqued Vance's clothing choices, including pants that were too slim, jackets that don't hug him very well, and a tie that was a distraction. And included in this is pictures from everyone's favorite pack, CPAC, where literally is the picture of JD Vance where his pants are rising up higher than his socks. So you see his legs when he's sitting down.
That's just an uncomfortable way to have pants.
I mean,
sit. I don't, never in my life.
Just go full John Fetterman at that point and wear shorts wherever you go.
There's another guy.
I mean, it's just kind of bonkers. So, but it ties into everything we talked about today, Cena. Weak leadership, feckless people who can't take a joke, and then real life situations and consequences where Derek Guy, a man who comments on men's clothing on the internet, is now being deported. Not actually, but
it's on
the vice president's radar.
They probably made a file.
They'll see him at TSA. They'll feel him down, and then maybe not even like his menswear. Well, I want to hear more about the TSA's outfits from Derek Guy, please.
Travis, that was a great show today. Thank you.
Thank you. We are the #1 foreign policy show in the manosphere for a reason.
Yeah.
And we're very popular outside of Home Depots.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus. Oh, my God. Listen, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. TheForeignReportLPN@gmail.com. If you got a question, send us it, or a comment, or you want to write us a love note, or you want to write Travis a love note. That's totally fine. Sign up for our newsletter on our website. The link will be in the episode description. We do a little Monday newsletter so you can see all the stuff that kind of changed between the time we aired the show or recorded the show and when we released. So that's all for today. I'm Cena Gazavi for Travis Irvine. We'll see you next week.